All right, guys, welcome back to the Discover Eden podcast. My name is Brandon,
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Marty.
and this week we're talking about Nephilim, and we're also back inside. Woohoo!
We get locked out today.
So that's awesome. We'll pray, get into the bumper, and then we'll get into it.
Lord, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for your word, for your spirit, for your leading. We thank you for all of this creation that you have made, Lord, and just this time and ability to dive into it, to dive into your word, to dive into the myths, the stories, the legends, the truths, all of that stuff, Lord. And we just ask for your wisdom and your leading in all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, to the bumper. All right, as we flip to all of our notes and everything, we are back, and we will be talking about Nephilim.
The big boys.
The heroes of Sanctuary. Oh, wait, that's Diablo.
So, in the Bible, the Hebrew word, like the Nephilim, its base being Nephal, occurs 3 times in the Bible, which I know kind of alluded to last episode when we talked about cherubim having 91 occurrences. 3 for Nephilim. 7 if you include giants.
Okay.
Which I've just got to say, I thought that was even 3 is fascinating because I could have sworn there was only 1.
Yeah. So I brought up the two passages we'll look at. So Genesis 6 and Numbers 13 are basically the 2 main places where you find Nephilim. Now, as to what Nephilim are, especially as what it's stated in the Bible, well, there's not a whole lot there.
Yeah, that's a giant question mark.
So we'll go into some of that. So we'll start with Genesis 6.
Yeah, Genesis 6, 1 through 8.
At least that's what I put down, yeah.
Yeah, and this is from the ESV. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord.
So, of all the accounts of what Nephilim are, that's about as close as you're going to get from the Bible. And it ties in a little bit with Jewish tradition. Now, I'm not entirely familiar with Jewish tradition. We'll get into some of the views of what Nephilim are a little bit later. But basically, some beings found humans attractive. The birds and the bees did their thing. Bada boom, bada bing, Nephilim.
Well played.
Yeah, but I mean, that's always kind of been my view of Nephilim, but at the same time, what is it? What are they? Who are they? Still have no idea. Like it. So what were the Nephilim like So did like fallen angels basically make love to humans, and then the Nephilim were born of it, and that's how you get Nephilim, which is one of the views. Well, again, I'll detail it in further later, but it's like, I'm confused. Wait, back up, hold up. No comprende. I don't get it. So it's always confused me, at least in that part. And yeah. So,
And also, I mean, the fact that it's only mentioned, well, 3 times. So there's not a whole lot of detail there
Right.
anyway.
or and that reminds me of like Seraphim, because Seraphim, oh, it appears once until you look at the Hebrew, and then it appears 7 times, and you're like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought it was just the one that was in Isaiah. Oh, it's more than that. Okay. Yeah, no, in the Hebrew, it's 3. It just shows up 3 times. Same where it's used Nephilim in the English. So it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Which is why going to like giants and stuff, it helps a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It at least gives a picture of what people think they look like or whatever.
Well, yeah, but I mean, giant itself is almost a subjective term. Like, oh, this guy's massive.
Yeah.
Must be a giant.
Dude's huge. He's like 7 feet tall, 300 pounds. Must be a linebacker. Like, kind of light. There's your giant.
Yes.
Speaking of linebacker, or you can talk about the entire team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you have your giants, and we'll get into this in a future episode, a couple episodes from now, where like you have the frost giants from like all that stuff from like Norse mythology and different things like that, where they're definitely larger than 7 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things like that where it's like, what is giant? What does that mean? I mean, Goliath even. Well, people use that term as in big.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Behemoth. It's big. Like, they're almost descriptive names.
Yeah.
Because what is it? Well, we don't really know necessarily, or it's hard to define. So, anyway. I'll get to the other one. Numbers 13, 31 through 33 is what I have on here. I'll just read it briefly here. So the other place where it's mentioned. So, and this is NIV. So, but the men who had come up with him said, we can't, and this is, I guess I should probably give a little bit of context here. So this is Caleb and everybody scouting out the promised land.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, context. Probably should have gave that beforehand, but yeah, here we are. So we can't attack those people. They're stronger than we are. And they had spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. So, Australia. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak, come from the Nephilim, which we'll get into that whole spiel later. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them. So they're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, they're scary. We're small. We'll go like this and submit, and we're like, let's not go there.
Yeah.
So that's the spies' reports going into the promised land. They're like, terrifying. They're big, they're massive. Again, this is almost an extrapolation of an actuality. So where reality could be a little bit different. They're almost like exploding it. It's the big fish story. Like, my fish was this big versus this big. So how tall were they actually? Well, we don't know because they never said. They're big, they're massive, they devour everything.
Yeah, they're bigger than us. Period.
I mean, that could be true. They could be bigger. And especially with some of the descendants, and there's a lot of interesting things with like the Anak people and different things like that, because they're almost thought to be, this is the line of the Nephilim, like the one that actually shares a lot of the traits and characteristics and the size to go along with it. Much like you see almost in cultures today, whether they're described as giant or not is debatable. But something, especially like in West Michigan that we have here, the Dutch are really tall. That's a characteristic that Dutch people share. So it's kind of much the same way. It's more of a bloodline thing rather than, I don't know. So they're set apart in a different way. And I don't think that's too crazy to think of, because we see some of these things even today with different cultures, people groups, ethnic groups, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
So it's not crazy. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Obviously, there's outliers, so people can be different in different ways besides bloodlines. But especially with what number says here, with speaking of the Anak people, or the descendants of Anak. So Anak is a person, a character. Don't really know much about him other than, well, he came from the Nephilim, and these people are descendants of him.
Yeah. And apparently it was common enough at that point that they didn't need to expand on that anymore.
So, to me, it fits more of a people group, which is why some of the other views of what Nephilim were is intriguing, because I can understand and see their points of view. So that's a little about that. Actually, I'm just gonna pull this up now before I forget about it. So let's go and do this now. Oh, there we go. So you guys can go see fun pictures. Obviously we'll get to the obvious that you can see in the picture there. But what I wanted to tie into here is the Hebrew. So you have Nephil, which is like the singular form of Nephilim. And you can see both of them there. We'll get to the other Hebrew in a minute. But yeah, so that is the word Nephal, or giants, and I didn't put giants on here, but the word for that is Rapha or Rapha, or Rapha or Rapphah. Probably should have put that on there, but similar enough with that. And a lot. So this is also found on the Bible Hub. So I'll kind of go through what the Bible Hub has to say a little bit here. And this is where these three views that you see on the screen here as well: the angel-human union view, dynastic tyrant view, and the Sethite-Cainite view. All those were found on the Bible Hub site, because I didn't know there were three views to begin with.
Right.
I thought there was the one, which is the first one. But we'll dive into that a little bit. But so the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance describes, obviously, Nephilim as giant or Nephil from Nephal. Properly, it's a feller, which is a bully or a tyrant. So a person that causes others to fall, not just a good old feller. Yeah, and then we've read the two passages where it's essentially found. And then what's interesting is that the Bible Hub gives three different views of what Nephilim, or what they think Nephilim are, because they're interpretive. They don't really know. The most widely known and accepted one is the angel-human union view, because it's the one that closest aligns with what the Bible says, especially with the Genesis 6 account.
Yep.
And going alongside Jewish rabbinic tradition as well. But the other views I wanted to mention, because they do make sense, at least in some, especially when you go to bloodlines and all that stuff, which you see later on with numbers, and especially with the giants. So I'll just kind of describe all three views. And again, all these were taken from Bible Hub, so I'm not taking any credit for it. So the angelic human union view. So many early Jewish and Christian commentators linked sons of God, Genesis 6:2, to fallen angels. This reading regards the Nephilim as hybrid offspring, highlighting the gravity of spiritual rebellion. Yeah. Like, even reading Genesis 6 and kind of going through the Nephilim thing there still boggles my mind, because I'm like, wait, what? That exists in the Bible? So humans and... Well, I thought angels were on a spiritual plane, and humans are on a physical plane, and then there's almost this intermixing of the two, and what the heck is going on? Yeah, they don't teach you that in Sunday on Sunday service. Some of these things, they're bound in mystery. And especially with the nature of, especially like the book of Genesis, it's a lot of oral tradition that's being spoken of. So are they like set physical, this is exactly what happened and how it happened? Well, no, it's not. But a lot of these are passed down, so a lot of the lines themselves, like ancestry lines, are passed down. And I trust the ancestry lines because, well, people would want to know their family tree, your family history, you know, for health or whatever. And that would have been something that, you know, they would keep a record of, at least one way or another. So seeing it, so there is some, at least a little bit of truth to it. As to what exactly, I don't know, especially when you look at some of these books in the Bible, Genesis being one. There's a lot of similarities with other stories, like other creation stories especially, with other cultures and mythologies. Some of them could be like intertwined almost, because, well, all of things mesh together, like your prototypical I caught a fish this big story. Eventually, over time, things can morph, and sometimes when we think one thing or we learn one thing about something else, it can almost become fact that overwrites what actually happened. Then you misremember because you're attributing truth to something that's fabricated.
Right.
So bear that in mind a little bit. So I'm not saying that the Bible itself is wrong here. It's just, it's easier to remember a story than it is to remember exact details. And you'll see this with David and Goliath as well. We'll get there. So that, long story short, angel-human union view. So the next view, the dynastic tyrant view, Bible Hub says, others understand sons of God as powerful human rulers who took wives by force, with the Nephilim representing the resultant warrior caste. So it's almost like a warrior group, a people of renowned warrior. So this is seeing Nephilim as more tyrant-like, rather than being massive and big. So the bully, the feller, good old feller,
Not good old, not good old.
not good.
bad old feller. So yeah, so that's dynastic tyrant view. I didn't even know that view existed, to be completely honest.
It kind of makes sense though. I mean, I understand what they're getting at.
Yeah. I mean, that's taking a very different approach and
Oh,
taking
100%.
more of a cultural, what else is around it with like,
Mhm.
let's look at Mesopotamia and some of the other groups of people that were there. Obviously, there were warrior groups.
Mhm.
That's how some people operated. Like, and you can even see this with some of the, people groups that, the Hebrews run into, the Israelites run into. Well, you have your Philistines, you have different things like that, and
Right.
you'll see them appear once again later.
Mhm.
But some of these are more, warrior groups. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna go into any more detail there. But then the last view, which I didn't really know, but again kind of makes sense, which is the Sethite Cainite view, and this is referring to both Seth and Cain
Mm.
from biblical ancestry.
Mhm.
So a third approach sees sons of God as Seth's godly line intermarrying with Cainite women, producing a generation of apostate mighty men. Because Cain went against God, slayed Abel,
Mhm.
and then that's of Seth's godly line, and Seth being the son of Adam and Eve.
Right.
So they're quote unquote sons of God, which, I mean, yeah, makes sense. I mean, if Adam and Eve were indeed made from dust,
Right.
having Seth,
Yep.
that's pretty made from God because
Yeah.
they're made from nothing. So sons of God, yeah, I mean, especially since Adam and Eve were as perfect as you can get for humanity.
Mhm.
Yep, that checks out. But that also relays to the creation story, is that is fact.
Yeah.
Instead of being a story. Which, again, and this is where it gets confusing, because I agree with the the ancestral line part of things,
Mhm.
because to me, that's more legitimate. It's the stories in between that can change. So this view kind of makes sense, but also has some truth laden with it. So if you take it directly word for word, or maybe that's not the greatest way of putting it, but I can see where it's going there because it makes sense if you think about it.
Yep.
So in all three of these cases, for the three views, they indicate a fall in one way or another. So a failure. So they fall into some level of depravity. So whether that's angel and humans coming together, whether that's warrior caste basically messing up women in other tribes or people groups to make them their own, or basically defiling God's lineage.
Mhm.
Well, I wouldn't say God's lineage, but godly, like they're perfect and then it deteriorates.
Yeah.
So there, and especially an interesting aspect of this, it goes again to the space word in the fall, which is to fall or have fallen.
Mhm.
So that's an aspect of what Nephilim actually is. That's the base word. So let's regroup. What perspective do we most align with? At least from what we knew going into it.
Yeah, I mean, for me going into this, like the angel human union view is the one I always kind of lean towards. I knew the most or the best or whatever.
It's the only one I had heard of
Yeah.
until now.
I'd never heard of the dynastic tyrant view. I had heard of the Sethite Cainite view, but that was like a one, heard this once in passing.
Yeah, it's
kinda thing.
like a one-off.
Yeah.
I only knew the angel human view. Jonathan, you're much the same. I can understand the other two in context.
Yes.
But obviously the most popular one is the angel human view. because
It tends to align. With
it's
what
the one that
is-
aligns. It's the one that's most widely accepted.
Yeah, that's basically what it says in Genesis. So, yeah.
Now, as we see it, the picture of here, the artist representation at least,
Mhm.
David and Goliath. Now, Goliath isn't directly mentioned as a Nephilim, nor a giant, but indirectly is referred to as a giant, which in turn you follow the Anak descendant thing that you find with the giants, and all of a sudden he's linked to Nephilim.
Mhm.
So he is a Nephilim, quote unquote. Goliath and David and Goliath is a story that a lot of people know.
Mm-hmm.
It's very widely known, even in culture. You got your David and Goliath, your underdog versus the big bad, if you will. Miracle on Ice, maybe. So it's Goliath the Gittite, which is who Goliath is.
Mhm.
Now, what's interesting is he's mentioned in multiple areas. Most attribute him to 1 Samuel 17, which is the story of David and Goliath.
Mhm.
Goliath himself is mentioned elsewhere in the Chronicles, and we'll get to that. So, first off, how tall was he? How tall? How big? What were his dimensions, at least according to the Bible? So, and this is found in 1 Samuel 17, 4 through 7. So somebody can read that if they want.
Sure, I got it. Where do you have it? Or...
What was it?
1 Samuel 17, 4 through 7. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but I'm just snapshotting.
Okay. This is from the NIV translation. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him.
Obviously, there's a little bit of a discrepancy with what you see in the picture there.
Yeah.
I don't see no shield bearer.
No.
Or,
Or, Greaves or Scale Mail.
It's like they didn't even pay attention.
Yeah, come on.
But it's neither here nor there. But yeah, so 6 cubits in a span tall. Now, I don't know about any of you that are watching. Off the top of my head, I have no idea what a cubit is. Or what a span is, for that matter. So, I did the hard work for y'all. So, I looked up, what was a cubit? How long was that? In terms of what we could actually figure out.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a couple meanings what this cubit could be. And that is a standard cubit or a royal cubit. Now, I am assuming a standard cubit here,
Mm-hmm.
but I could also understand it to also be royal, as it's associated with royalty, with David.
Hmm.
So, I'm going to mention both sizes. And at the end of the day, I believe more the standard than I do the royal, because the royal is slightly larger than the standard.
Mm-hmm.
But, so let's go. So a standard cubit is 18 inches versus the royal cubit, 20.4 inches. So, I'm using standard, obviously. Just in standard cubits, so a span is half a cubit. So, for the standard cubit, that'd be 9 inches. So, Goliath's height, and this is without the extra 9 from the span.
Mm-hmm.
So, Goliath's height would be 108 inches or 9 feet tall.
Yep.
The span would make it 9'9". That's standard. Now, if we were to go to royal, Goliath's height would be 132.6 inches. Or basically 11 foot tall.
Yeah.
A little over 11 foot. 11 feet, 0.5 inches. So, yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Big guy.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of which, whether you go standard or royal, he's big.
Yeah.
He's big. And to put this into perspective, average people of the time were about 5'5".
So I'd be tall for that. At 5'9".
Because people, of more ancient times weren't as tall.
Yeah.
Just weren't as tall. Just simply.
Wait, would that make you a Nephilim?
Not at 5'9".
All right, way to bring me back down to earth, Brandon.
Switch the two and maybe.
But I mean, considering if that's the standard size for most people, again, regardless of what Goliath's height was,
Yeah.
that's imposing.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely imposing. Interesting thing here is the Septuagint, which is Jewish, whatever. They list him at 6'7", which
Which is a huge difference.
definitely differs from what the Bible itself says in 1 Samuel, because there's no other record of a size for Goliath. The only place that is in 1 Samuel. So it's almost reliant more on Jewish tradition there. And obviously 6'7" for people that are average 5'5", that's still a big guy.
Yep.
I mean, if there's a bunch of people that are like 6'8", 6'7", 7 foot, yeah, you might call them giants. Because, well, they're giant compared to you.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is almost a way to almost humanize, I guess, if you want to call it, like, Goliath. To put it in perspective that we could understand. But I'm like, it also takes away the possibility of actual giants existing because we just simply don't see them anymore. And there have been big, tall people, in the history books that we've seen.
Yeah.
Like 8 feet tall people, they've existed. And we have record of them.
Yeah.
Like Robert Woodlow or whatever, from the U.S. And like, you see a couple of people like that were really tall. They don't live very long, typically. I mean, but let's face it, if they're a warrior race, if you want to call it that, or if they, they go in battle, people at that time didn't live that long necessarily anyways.
Yeah.
Would it really matter? And you'll see this even as well. You'll see them with deformities. So there's a giant that is referred to in the Bible with 6 fingers, 6 toes for all of them. So 24 digits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just other different deformities as well. So that's interesting. And if that's more of a characteristic of it, it seems like it's more of a line and a lineage. So the fact that they could have been really massive people and needed those extra digits to kind of support all that body weight. Now, I'm not saying that's true of every one of them, but it could lead to making it understandable if they actually were that big. So I don't want to like discredit like what the Bible says here, even though I'm going to make a counter argument for some of the reasons why you might not necessarily trust everything that has to say, especially within 1st and 2nd Samuel, as we'll get there. So let's just take a look at the weapons and armor, just because I was curious, because I looked at the cubits. All right, what's a shekel?
Yeah.
No, not a shekel. A shekel. Shekel's the Pokemon. All right, so his weapon, the spear, the iron spearhead specifically, weighed 600 shekels, and the armor weighing 5,000 shekels. So, a shekel, according to the good old interwebs, weighs 11 grams, or 0.0242508 pounds. So, in perspective, this is about the weight of a AAA battery or a paperclip. And I didn't even realize they weighed the same.
Yeah, that's a weird comparison.
Which those weigh about 10 grams. So AAA battery, paperclip, 10 grams. So a spearhead was 600 shekels, or 6,600 grams, which is about 14.5 pounds. To put this into perspective, that's a bowling ball. And on the heavier side of legal bowling balls at that. And that's at the tip of this. That's just the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
That's the spearhead, kind of what you see on the right here. Those are also spearheads, and quite large ones at that. And that's in the Museum of Israel, or Museum of Israel. It's a museum in Jerusalem. So, and I've been there. So they do exist. I've seen them. They're not made up. Those are definitely not 14 pounds.
Yeah.
Some of them are like, I want to say 7, which is still quite large.
Yeah.
But it's half of what Goliath's spearhead was, at least according to this. And then the armor, the 5,000 shekels, would be 55,000 grams, or 121.25 pounds, which, in perspective, is about the weight of an average recliner and heavier than the average 2-cushion sofa. So the recliner, average 125 pounds, average 2-cushion sofa, 100 pounds. And he wore that as armor.
Yeah.
That's quite heavy.
Which, I mean, if he's that big, well, it makes sense that his armor would be that much heavier.
So that's just some of the math that went along with some of that, just because I was curious, and maybe you guys were too.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to link a video that I found was interesting, and this is about these spearheads that are on the right here. And it's about the archaeological evidence for giants, as Expedition Bible, which is the YouTube channel that I'm going to be referencing here. So take a look at them. I love them. Awesome. Take a look at it if you're interested. But he talks about the Monash Hoard, which is where they found some copper armor plating scales, along with these hoard of spearheads, which is interesting. And that was found at the Kfar Monash Hoard, found at the archaeological site of Gath, which is Tel Es Sefi. So, if you want to hear more about that, look at Expedition Bible. I'll bring a link in the description, but I'll kind of explore some of the other things here. So the spearheads in this hoard were copper, with the largest, which is letter D on there, being 26 inches long and weighing about 4.5 pounds. So, okay, maybe not 7, like I said, but 4.5 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, and just looking at that and thinking that's only a third of what Goliath is. That's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, so bear that in mind. They honestly look like swords.
Yeah.
So typical spearheads were much smaller, though there are some longer ones kind of like these as well. They just looked slightly different. So even some of those aren't necessarily, unrealistic. And obviously some people can say, oh, they might have been ceremonial. And then you look at them and they're dented and beat up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I don't know if they've seen battle.
Mm-hmm.
So there are several of these found in the museum from the Monash Horde. So thought that was really interesting. Again, take a look at Expedition Bible if you want to learn a little bit more about it, because I'm not the expert here, but there are people that actually know a little bit more than I do.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna get into possibly why 1st and 2nd Samuel may be a little bit different than what we might find elsewhere when we look at the depiction of who Goliath is or who slayed Goliath. There is a discrepancy, because in the book of 1 Samuel, well, David slays Goliath, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a story everybody knows.
Yep.
Story everybody knows. But then when you look at First Chronicles, I think it's First Chronicles, right? First Chronicles 20, verse 5. And this reads, and this is NIV, and they change with different translations as well, but this is the NIV. In another battle with the Philistines, Elhanan, son of Jair, killed Lami, the brother of Goliath the Gittite. Now, in the Hebrew, the brother of does not exist. And if you actually look at, like, let's say verse 2 Samuel 21 1 through 21 15 through 22, specifically verse 19. I'm just going through this quick. So the Bible reads in the NIV, in another battle with the Philistines at Gob, Elhanan, son of Jair, the Bethlehemite, killed the brother of Goliath the Gittite. And again, the brother of does not exist. They say the same thing. What's interesting is now we go to the Hebrew that you see on the screen here, Hal Lemi, which means Bethlehemite. Lemi, the brother of Goliath, supposedly, is exactly spelled like the Lemi you see in Hal Lemi, which is the Bethlehemite. It's a translation error. Which is interesting. And so it's interesting. And I have more on here as well, like that I did, because I got really nerdy and went into, like, what does Jer mean? And Jer is Yara Origim. And then it goes in all that. I'm not going to dive into that because I just went down a rabbit hole when I did all this. But yeah, I've always thought Lemi existed because, well, that's what the Bible says, surely. And then you're like, oh, it's Bethlehem, because you go the Lehem for Bethlehem, and it's very similar to Lemi there. So, like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And so who's Elhanan? If Elhanan's the one that took down Goliath, well, then how did David do it?
Right.
Well, what does that mean? So 1 Chronicles 11:26 lists Elhanan as one of David's mighty men, yet lists him as the son of Dodo and still from Bethlehem.
Mm.
Which, it's interesting, as Elhanan is still related to David,
yeah,
in one way,
yeah,
being one of the mighty men. but yet the person who defeated Goliath then would have been an Elhanan, which could have been attributed to David.
Mm.
And one thing that's very interesting is the book of 1st and 2nd Samuel, as they were just the book of Samuel. A majority of the things in there were oral tradition.
Mm.
Things passed down orally, which is why you have stories.
Yeah.
Now, some of it had the records as well.
Mhm.
So there were also records in there, and those were more legit and accurate. But there's a little bit of, I don't want to say fudging, but there's more of these, my fish was this big, and it kind of changes some of, things. And David was well known as one of the kings of the Hebrews, like kings of the Israelite, of the people. He's a well-known, well-loved king. You attribute to what, like, one of David's mighty men slew Goliath, again, was attributed to David. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Especially when you think of things, especially with when 1st and 2nd Samuel were written, which was during Babylonian exile, which is when they believed this to actually have been written, like actually physically written down, not just orally, which is hundreds of years after the events.
Right.
So can things change from that point? Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think the Chronicles are, well, Chronicles for a reason, because they're basically depictions of this happened at this point because this happened, and this is the ancestry of blah, blah, blah. The reason why most people don't like reading some of those things is because that's how it is, because it's basically documentation.
Right.
So I believe the Chronicles to be more accurate in this sense, because it's more of a documentation. Because you get your lineage, you get your other things like that. But it also puts in, it's like, okay, so that means David didn't actually kill Goliath. It's a story. People remember stories better than, the fine details.
Mm-hmm.
It brings forth a message.
Mm-hmm.
There's meaning behind it. It's not, sure, they might be exaggerating it a bit. So whether Goliath truly is 9 feet, 11 feet tall, it may be skewed.
Yeah.
So I can understand why the Septuagint would have like 6'7", for example. But again, that's also based on oral tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of those, you look at the details that are given in those cases, and do those details even really matter?
Right.
No. What's the point of the story? It's not how tall he was. It was God's faithfulness and all that, that they slew the giant regardless. And thinking about the whole attribution to David thing, even that would make sense, because how many, kingdoms and kings and stories are, based on attribution too, especially regarding like a kingship, whatever these mighty deeds are done are attributed to whoever they're serving, kind of thing.
Yeah, just like a lot of things were attributed to Nebuchadnezzar, for example. You attribute it to the person that most people would know.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody that, because the 3 mighty men of David, well, they're under David's authority.
Mm-hmm.
So, as king, all that things that would be attributed to David.
Yeah, right. They were acting on his behalf anyway.
So, sure, the story is nice and all, but the story is a story for a reason. It's not like something like that didn't happen, but it's a story, and it's something, especially when you're a Christian for so long, you read the Bible, you're like, you almost take everything what it is as it says, which is understandable,
Yeah.
but you have to look at things in context as well. So to say that, like, yeah, the story of David and Goliath may not have actually existed the way that we think it did. But the things that are mentioned in the story of David and Goliath are very real. Gath was real. Like, some of these places were real. The story of knocking him on the head with this pebble and stone, it may not have happened the way that you think it might have. Now, I don't know how Elhanan slew Goliath, but there was, like, I want to say a revolt or some attack on the Nephilim by the Israelites that happened at Gath, or like one of the camps, to basically eliminate the rest of the Nephilim. And that's where it's mentioned in the Chronicles that I mentioned earlier, where this slew this giant.
Yeah.
Basically, this is the eradication of the Nephilim.
Yeah.
So it could have been an attack, a deliberate attack. It's not the same picture as you see that's all fancy and everybody knows it because it's David and Goliath. It's this super narrative. Oh, what an awesome story. Son of Jesse, all that stuff. I'm not saying those things didn't, like, the son of Jesse. I do think, like, the lineages are accurate, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The story itself may have been exaggerated a bit, or to show a narrative. Because, again, this is after hundreds of years. So it's telling a story, but it's also a tale of remembering. So they're remembering God in a time where they're in exile.
Yeah.
So that's a very key point here, especially in the book of 1st and 2nd Samuel. A lot of them are oral traditions, and they're, again, highlighting God's faithfulness. They're highlighting God in the midst of something where they feel distant from him.
Yeah.
So that's a key thing to note here. And again, you don't really hear this on a Sunday service because they're like, oh yeah, this story of David and Goliath that you knew, yeah, that was possibly made up. Yeah, that wouldn't go well at church.
Blasphemy.
People would go against that notion.
Yeah.
I probably would have said the same thing. I'm like, that's not what the Bible says. But you also have to take things into consideration contextually. And a lot of things, especially in ancient people groups, a lot of things were passed on orally before they were even written down.
Yep.
You see this, and like, we see cave paintings, so you see stuff like that. Nothing was written down, but you see pictures of it. Again, pictures are a way to tell stories, much like with the Lascaux caves and like all these paintings and cave paintings that you see. They're telling stories.
Yeah.
My fish was this big. Like, it's those kind of stories, but they're telling a meaning, like there's meaning behind it. More than just, I went hunting today, I caught a fish, it tasted good. Yeah. Needless to say, there's more to the story than just the story itself. Like, there's a meaning why it's there, and it's remembering God.
Yeah.
It's remembering God's faithfulness. It's remembering God's provision. It's all those things harkens back to. Just like we remember God through communion. We remember God when people are baptized. Like, all those kind of things. It's a remembrance. It's not like before baptism, especially, like, where we go into the water is a symbol of we die to ourselves and come up living to, like, we die just as Christ died and rise again as Christ lives.
Yeah.
It's that example of we go through the death of ourselves, which is we plunge into the water. Basically, that's it. Done. Show credits.
Yeah. But wait, there's more.
Yeah, but then there's more. And then, but God.
Yeah.
And that's like, if you want, this is something that I had when I was on the Israel trip that I went to with my dad. Shoot, I can't even think of the ministry. What's the ministry again? Under the Fig Tree Ministries. So George was the person leading it, and he said something that kind of stood out to me, which is the Bible is basically but God. So it's yada yada yada, but God did this, or but God fill in the blank.
Yeah, basically people suck, but God.
And you see this a lot in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And to go back to Nephilim a little bit, did they exist? Oh, they certainly existed. I mean, there's record of them within tradition and whatever. What were they exactly? Great question.
Yeah.
It's still shrouded in mystery, at least to me. Could they be 6'7"? Sure. Could they be 9'9"? Sure. Does that really change anything? Does that change the narrative at all?
Right.
No. It's interesting to think about. But, I mean, especially when you think of all the Eames and everything. You have Seraphim, Cherubim, and then you have Nephilim. But then the Nephilim is almost like a perversion of what is divine or what is holy. So, I mean, there's that aspect of it. But anyway. Anything else that you guys would like to add?
I mean, just thinking about like the, remembrance of God, especially talking about the Old Testament, like that was what they always did. Like God did something. Okay, I'm going to go set up this altar. God parted the Jordan. All right, we're going to take stones out of the Jordan, set up these 12 stones and do it in remembrance of God. Why 12? Well, one for each of the tribes.
Tribe.
Yeah.
Like everything had a story. Everything had a narrative.
Yeah.
You even have that with the Passover. They still do the Passover.
Yep.
The Passover is all the way back in Exodus. So those things still exist. They still happen. It doesn't discredit them. Like, the reason they still do it today is because it happened long time ago, and they kept the tradition up and going for that long.
Yeah. And it's still to remember God.
And it's all to remember God and God's provision. So that's why it's like you can't discount or discredit oral tradition or anything of that nature, because there's truth behind it.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not A, you believe it, or B, you understand it. And to us, it's far out of our context.
It's an understatement.
Thousands of years out of context. The only way we have it to remember by is the tradition, what was passed down. Is it going to be a little bit different from what was reality? Of course it is.
Yeah.
But does it make it any less real?
Right.
No. So, anyway, that's my spiel, I guess. Anyway, I'll link some of the description. I'll link the two things in the description below. So, Bible Hub and Expedition Bible. You can take a check. Well, you can check them out at your own leisure. But that'll be it for this video. Thank you again for watching. Share with people that you think would be interested. Like, subscribe, all those fun things. Anyway, that'll be it. Peace out.
Till next time.